back to Google Foods. My name is Guga, and today I'm exploring
Chat, well, I'm not gonna watch this whole thing, dude.
almost every way to
no
cook a steak.
7 no fuck you chat. Anyways, 3 months pod. Can I get a welcome to the jungle? No.
To keep
Okay,
this test as consistent as
xQcOW.
possible, I got the steaks from the same supplier. All of them have the same
Damn, these look really
grade,
good.
so the supplier calls them premium. They are basically a choice steak with a better marbling score. So let's get started. Almost every way to cook
Chat, what is a brown? Doesn't brown mean that it's oxidated? So that it was exposed to air?
a steak. If you are unfamiliar with a ribeye, this is what it looks like. There's
Like
always
aged.
a cap, which covers the eye. The cap is one of the most flavorful piece of meat in the cow. I season most steaks
Hey,
with salt,
xQc
pepper,
just
and
wanted
garlic
to
powder.
say,
And for
suck
most
my
steaks,
ball.
I let it rest for at least an hour so that the salt can penetrate deeply into the meat. The pan-seared steak. Coat the pan with some high heat oil. I'm using avocado oil. Bring it to medium high heat and sear the steak until you get a nice beautiful golden color. I recommend flipping it as many times as necessary. Flipping the steak
I don't
several
like this.
times will keep it from burning. And instead of getting black char, you'll get that beautiful Maillard reaction like this. So flip as many times as necessary. Once you reach your desired color, set your stove to low heat. Add 3 tablespoons of butter. Throw in some aromatics. I'm using garlic and rosemary. You can use thyme or many other things. As the butter is melting, it will deglaze the pan. And using
Chat,
a
the
spoon,
top is
you
too
wanna
rock
keep
solid.
basting the steak. This will make your steak a lot more flavorful. You want to keep basting it until you reach an
This
internal
crusts
temperature
it, dude. I don't like that.
35 degrees Fahrenheit. As you would expect, this is a perfect way to cook a steak. The flavor developed by the butter and the rosemary is amazing. To say the steak is juicy is an understatement. It is literally mouth-watering. And the best part, anyone can do this. This is an amazing way to cook a steak. The dishwasher steak. After seasoning it,
Well, guys, why are you guys saying this is raw? This is like not even medium rare, isn't it?
literally mouth-watering. And the best part, anyone can do this.
This is very cooked.
This is an amazing way to cook a steak. The dishwasher steak. After seasoning it, put it on a vacuum bag. Open up your dishwasher and make sure there's no dirty dishes. Put it to start and let it wash for a full cycle.
What?
I gotta be honest. As soon as I removed the steak from the bag, it looked exactly like a sous vide steak. So I couldn't help myself but to slice it open. And as I did, it is exactly like a sous vide steak. It is perfectly cooked from edge to edge.
See, that's raw.
Obviously, just like a sous vide steak, there's no crust. But we can fix that real quick. Once that beautiful crust was put on the steak, I quickly sliced it open and oh boy. This is good. This is a sous vide steak. It is perfectly cooked. And all of us were like, what?
Yeah, it's
This
still
steak
mooing.
is amazing. And I know it's hard to believe, but it
Guys,
is exactly
it's still
like a
fucking
sous vide
mooing. Are you
steak.
kidding me, dude?
It is juicy, tender, very flavorful. And we could not stop eating it. If I blindfold you and give you this in a restaurant, you would say it was a sous vide steak. This is a great way to cook a steak. The front seared steak. Get your charcoal real hot and sear in both sides. The trick here is to keep flipping. You don't want it to burn. What you're looking for is a nice golden brown color in both sides. Once you're happy with both sides, remove it from the heat and cook it at
It's raw.
225 degrees Fahrenheit until you reach an internal temperature of 135. As soon as I slice it up, I can tell you right away, this is an amazing way to cook a steak. It is juicy and tender. The crust is incredible. And as you can see, we don't have a big gray band. This is an amazing
It's
steak.
bleeding.
And that's the reason most people in the world cook it this way. The baked steak. Set your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit in the bake setting and let it preheat. With a tray and your cooling rack, add your seasoned steak to the oven and let it cook for 30 minutes. This is just like the reverse seared method on the grill. As you can see, it was perfectly cooked. Edge to edge perfection, medium rare. But there is no crust. So just like a sous vide steak or the dishwasher steak, we have to put a crust on it. If I taste it without
Guys,
a
all those
crust,
are raw.
it
I'm done with
tastes
this video.
It is juicy, it's tender, but it's missing something. And we can fix that. As I slice it open now, you can tell the difference. Now that is a much better steak. That's what I'm talking about. The deep fried steak. Fill up the pot with canola oil and bring it to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Get your perfectly seasoned steak and throw it in there. After 7 minutes, take it out and it has a beautiful crust. Probably one of the most beautiful crust ever on a steak. And it's kind of crunchy and hard to cut.
Dude,
But
that-
as soon
that
as I
looks like a
slice
fucking
it open,
heart
it is
clogging
juicy.
device, dude.
It is very juicy. And you might think that the steak is oily and it
feel like you
tastes
eat that, you
terrible,
wake up
but
and
it
your fucking
doesn't.
heart
This same
clogs
day,
up,
I
dude.
have quite a few people in my house and we all tried it. And it is a wonderful steak. As you can see, perfectly cooked medium rare. Yeah, the edges has a little bit of brown, but the crust is just incredible. And the flavor from the Maillard reaction of the crust can't be explained. And to be honest, everyone that tried the steak wanted more. So I had to end up cooking 3 more after this. This is a great way to cook a steak. Everyone wanted more and more. It is wonderful. This is one of those steaks that you don't want to stop eating. I know it sounds weird because you deep fried the steak, but man, it was good. It was real good. The air fryer steak. Heat up your air fryer to the highest setting and let it preheat. Once it gives you okay, open it up and throw in the steak.
That's how POP did.
For 8 minutes. Once that was up, my steak was ready. As I sliced the steak, as you can see, it was cooked unevenly. But as I try it, it tastes okay. It's not an amazing steak, but it's okay. It is missing a crust. It's also not.
Oh, what is this?
Set up big lumps of charcoal and light up your fire. With this method, you really want your charcoal to be
This is some
white.
hipster shit.
Once that's done, just add your steak directly into the charcoal. As the steak touches the charcoal, it will immediately cool it down.
Now
It is
you get
normal
cancer,
for the
didn't it?
edges to burn. That fat is facing direct heat all the time. You want to keep flipping the steak to ensure
What
that
is
it cooks
that?
evenly. After 15 minutes, it's ready.
That's
Once
how
I
you get
slice it
cancer,
open,
dude.
This method works. It doesn't cook the steak evenly, as some part of the charcoals are hotter than others. But at the same time, it gives a very unique flavor to your steak. The char flavor is intense, in a good way, still extremely juicy, and a very flavorful steak. This is a great way to experience a nice steak. And if you have never done it, you should try it. Just make sure you get lamp
Chat,
charcoal.
isn't
Do not
burned
use
stuff
briquettes.
like give you
If
cancer?
do, instead of eating steaks, you're gonna eat ash. The panini press steak or George Foreman steak. Season your steak, throw it in, and let it cook for 8 minutes. After 8 minutes, your steak is ready. And as I'm slicing the steak, as you can see, it's unevenly cooked. The cap is completely overcooked, but as I'm tasting it, it's alright. It's not amazing, it's not great, it's not wonderful. It is not a great way to cook a steak, but it does the job. It cooks it fast.
Is it a blood vessel?
And if you're somewhere that you don't have access to a stove or a grill, this will do the job. The boiled steak. Bring your pot to a boil and throw the seasoned steak in there. Once the temperature of 125 degrees Fahrenheit has been reached, remove the steak. As it comes out of the water, it does not look very appetizing. And when I slice it up, as you can see, it's quite rare. I'm still gonna give it a go and see how it tastes. And as you would expect, it is not good. There's not much flavor. All the seasoning has been washed out. It's still juicy and tender, believe it or not, but there is zero flavor on the steak. It is also very unappetizing to eat. It needs a crust and more seasoning. It can still be saved. Pan fry in a hot skillet with oil. Throw in a big chunk of butter. Baste it as much as you can.
this is for the dog,
and
dude.
infuse the butter into the steak.
This is
When
for
I
the
brought it
dog
to
or for the
cutting board
neighbors?
and I sliced it up. Oh yes, now we're talking. Juicy, tender. It's missing a little bit of salt, but that can be adjusted. It is now a good steak. The smoked steak. Set your smoker to the highest setting and let it smoke until you reach an internal temperature of 135 degrees Fahrenheit. And as you can see, it does not have a crust, but it's perfectly cooked. And as I take a bite, it is a very wonderful steak. Smoky flavor, even the juiciness.
I feel like because
from
the steak, dude, people are so picky and like
way to cook a steak. It tastes
hipsters,
completely
dude.
different than charcoal. I wouldn't mind putting a nice crust on it, but it's so delicious that it was not necessary. I ended up eating the steak all by myself. I didn't even care about the crust. The flavor was amazing. The butter steak. Melt 4 sticks of butter and set your stove to medium-low heat. Throw in your seasoned steak and let it cook in butter. It has a nice buttery smell that you expect it to be wonderful.
Fuck?
And just like if it's not enough butter, baste it a little bit more. Once
Guys,
it's cooked to an internal
this will
temperature of
definitely
135 degrees
clog
Fahrenheit,
arteries.
your steak is ready. And there we have it, the butter poached steak. Not as great looking as you thought, huh? As you can see, there's no crust at all. It just looks nasty. But I gotta tell you, it smells good, so we're gonna slice it open and see how we did. And as I'm tasting the steak, oh boy, there's no flavor. The butter has completely washed out all the flavor from the steak. I'm trying another piece here to see if there's any flavor. There's no flavor.
Guys,
it's edible, but it's
it's
not
bleeding.
Good. This is just a terrible way to cook a steak and a huge waste of butter. Hashtag save the butter. The broiled steak. Set up a baking sheet with a cooling rack
Nice
and
trolling.
add your
I'm done
seasoned
with this.
steak. Heat up the oven in the broil setting. Put the rack of the oven as close as possible to the heating element. Add your steak and close the door. Keep an eye on it and flip as many times as necessary. I did it 4 times. After 8 minutes of flipping, my steak was cooked. As you can see, it did not get a good crust. The fat is burned, but there's zero browning.
This
It
guy
just
loves
looks
crust.
horrible. My oven is just not powerful enough. As I slice it open, it looks cooked.
This guy's
But as you
awkward, I'm
can see,
done.
the edges and the cap are cooked unevenly. But as I taste the steak, yeah, it's missing a crust. It's not a great steak.
Calm down this chat.
So I
Let's
got
give
my
it a
flamethrower and put it to work. Once that was done, I sliced it open, got a piece. Oh yes, much better. Now it even
I'll say it
tastes
again
like...
when I cook it.
This method works great, and it has been used for thousands. I use this kind. This will allow you to flip the steaks very easily as it's cooking and cook them over charcoal. One of the great things about this method is that you can easily flip them without any hassle. You can take it to direct heat to the indirect heat extremely
it's good.
easy.
That's
This method
caveman
is
style.
very popular in Brazil and many other countries. And if you're thinking that because you put a hole on the steak
xQcOW.
you will be dry, you are incorrect. This method works great, and it has been used for thousands of years. As I slice the steak, you can tell
Hi
how
chat,
juicy it
Roller
is.
Coaster Tycoon 2
The toaster
test of
oven
precision.
steak.
We're not
Slice
playing
your
that.
steak thin so it can fit inside of the toaster oven. Season it well with
xQc
salt,
just
pepper, and
wanted to
garlic
let you
powder.
know that
Remove the bottom
Floridians
part
aren't
of your
going to the
toaster.
beach.
If not,
It's
juices
all
will
the
just
dumb
make a
spring
mess.
breakers that
Add
are
the
going to
steaks
the
and put it
beach.
to the highest
Real
setting.
Floridians
Run it
don't
through
go to
3
the beach at
cycles.
this
The
time
cool
of
thing
year.
about this method is
Anyways,
that you
much
can
love
see what's
xQcOW.
happening, and it looks like it's working. To my surprise, this is the toaster oven steak. I mean, honestly, what can I tell you? It's not cooking evenly. There's no crust. It was looking great inside of the toaster, but I mean, it did cook the steak. This is just a mess. When tasting it, it tastes horrible. Not good. Don't try this at home. This is a
All the
terrible way
juice
to
is
cook a
gone,
steak.
dude. It's
The
dried out,
wine
bro.
steak. Add a full bottle of wine to your cast iron and bring it to a boil. Throw in your seasoned steak and let it cook for 15 minutes. I must warn you, your entire house will smell like wine. If you're not careful, the wine flavor will infuse into your walls, and it will be hard to remove the smell of wine from your house. As the steak were cooking, I literally had to walk out. Now don't get me wrong, I love a smell of wine, but as it's cooking, it is just horrible. And there you have it, the wine steak. As you can see, there's no crust. It's basically a boiled steak in wine. Actually, that's literally what it is. And as I'm trying the steak, it's terrible. I can tell you right now,
That's
this
bitter.
is the worst way to cook a steak. There's no flavor of meat. There's no flavor of wine. Just horrible. Out of all the methods I tried, this was the worst. The sous vide steak. Season it well with salt,
Oh, shit,
pepper,
here it
and
comes.
garlic powder. Once that's done, vacuum seal it. Heat up your circulator to 131 degrees Fahrenheit.
Guys, who has a vacuum sealer in their house, dude? Fucking drug dealers and fucking resellers, dude. And drop shippers. Wait, we do? Yeah. Why?
Circulator to
Oh, we do
131
apparently.
degrees Fahrenheit. Cook it for 2.5 hours. Once that's done, remove it from the bag and give it a sear. There's many methods, but today I choose this one. Once perfectly seared, slice it up, and there you have it. Perfectly cooked steak. Sous vide will give you the most consistent steak every time. This is a wonderful steak, and if you have never tried it, you should.
There we have it, almost every way to cook a steak. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If I forgot any
Sure, man. Pog. Okay.